There is a specific kind of anticipation that only a handful of television programs have ever generated. The kind that begins months before the first episode airs, that fills the comment sections of farming forums and celebrity gossip sites and serious agricultural policy publications in equal measure, that turns a release date announcement into a news story in its own right. Clarkson's Farm Season 5 premieres on June 3rd, 2026, with 4 episodes releasing on that date, 2 more on June 10th, and the final 2 on June 17th. The announcement, made official by Amazon Prime Video after months of speculation, landed with the specific force that only genuinely anticipated things land with. Not simply excitement, but relief. The farm had been through its worst year. The TB lockdown had shut the cattle operation for months. The rain had made planting impossible. Clarkson had admitted earlier in the year that there was no filming happening on the farm at the moment, or farming. A sentence that, coming from a man who had documented every catastrophe and triumph of his agricultural venture for 5 consecutive years, carried an unusual weight. And now, finally, the date was set. June 3rd. Diddley Squat was back. GB News Yahoo. The announcement that Season 5 was coming had been made, characteristically, in a way that nobody who had been watching the show could have found surprising. On November 5th, 2024. Bonfire night. Clarkson had shared a video on Instagram of fireworks lighting up Diddley Squat Farm in the shape of a number 5. He had written with the specific register that had made his social media presence an extension of his television personality rather than a separate thing. Over the years, bright lights in the sky have been used to make many important announcements. The birth of baby Jesus, for example. But tonight, they were being used to make an announcement that was even bigger than that. Season 5 of Clarkson's Farm was coming. The caption read, "It's the 5th of November. The fireworks said the rest. And the months that had followed. The TB lockdown. The rain, the inheritance tax taking effect in April 2026. The farming year that Clarkson had described as a very problematic one. Had all been part of the story that Season 5 would tell. Yahoo! The Season 5 synopsis, as released by Amazon Prime Video, was brief and precise. Clarkson's farm is back, and amidst a government budget that sends the UK farming community into uproar, Jeremy decides some big changes are needed to make the farm run more smoothly. The government budget in question was Rachel Reeves' autumn budget of October 2024. The announcement that had changed agricultural property relief and imposed the 20% inheritance tax on farm estates above £1 million that had sent thousands of farmers to London in protest, that Clarkson had been arguing against for 18 months, and that had taken effect on April 5th, 2026. Exactly 1 week before the Season 5 release date announcement. The timing was, in its own way, a summary of what the show had become. Not simply a farming documentary. Not simply entertainment. A piece of evidence in an ongoing argument about the relationship between the British government and the people who produce Britain's food. An argument that was now being conducted simultaneously in newspaper columns, in parliamentary debates, in farming forums, and in a television series that had made more people care about agricultural policy than any other cultural product in recent British history. GB News, there was also the possibility of a royal cameo. In March 2025, Prince William had visited the Cotswolds to meet Clarkson and his co-stars Kaleb Cooper and Charlie Ireland as part of a wider campaign to raise awareness for mental health care among young farmers. The visit had come too late for Series 4, which had already been filmed and was in post-production. William had revealed during the visit that his son Prince George was a fan of the show, and that when he had asked George what to say if he met Kaleb, George's advice had been direct: tell Kaleb to mind his language. The exchange had been widely reported at the time and had given the show's audience the specific pleasure of imagining the heir to the throne watching a Cotswold farm manager with strong opinions about tractors and planning applications. Whether the meeting would appear in Season 5, whether it had been filmed, whether it fit the narrative, whether the palace had approved its broadcast, was a question that the production team had not publicly answered. The speculation was part of the anticipation. Yahoo! Hoo-hoo! Kaleb Cooper remained one of the most important faces around Diddley Squat Farm. His absence from part of Series 4, a brief departure for outside work that some headlines had treated as a permanent exit, had generated more audience concern than almost any other development in the show's recent history, which said something specific about what the character had become. Kaleb Cooper had arrived in Series 1 as a local farm worker who had never watched Top Gear and had no particular interest in the fact that his employer was famous. He had become, over 5 years of appearing on camera approximately 2 days a week, a nationally known figure. The subject of a best-selling book, of extensive media coverage, of the kind of public recognition that people who had spent decades working in television often struggled to achieve. His relationship with Clarkson, the impatient young expert and the enthusiastic but incompetent older man who employed him, had produced some of the show's most consistently funny moments, and his absence, even briefly, had reminded the audience how much of the show's texture depended on it. His return to the farm was confirmed, and his long-term role remained important to the farm operation. Wikipedia, the heartbreaking storyline that Clarkson had hinted at in interviews remained, as of the release date announcement, unspecified. He had said it involved tragedy and loss. He had said it was the kind of thing that could not be staged. He had said that Season 5 was the darkest year yet, a phrase that carried weight in the context of a show that had documented Gerald Cooper's prostate cancer, the deaths of multiple animals, the failure of crops, and the specific grinding difficulty of learning to farm in one's 60s while simultaneously fighting planning bureaucrats and government tax policy. What had happened at Diddley Squat in the year being documented, the year that the TB lockdown had made the worst in the farm's recent history, would be revealed in 4 episodes on June 3rd, and then in 2 more on June 10th, and the final 2 on June 17th. The structure was familiar from previous seasons. The content was not. Clarkson had confirmed that whatever happened, the show would be taking a short break after Season 5. Acknowledging that the crew had been filming 2 or 3 days a week, every week, for 5 years, and that everybody could do with the rest. He had not ruled out a 6th season. He had said he would do a 6th if there was a good enough reason. A bloody good story. The condition was, by the logic of everything Clarkson's farm had always been, a self-fulfilling one. There would be a story. There was always a story at Diddley Squat. The question was whether the story that emerged from the darkest year yet would leave enough unfinished business to justify returning. Whether the inheritance tax, the TB aftermath, the pub, the brewery, the shop, the pregnant ewes and the new donkey, and the wheat and barley that would generate no money, and the cows that had been locked down for months. Whether all of it would produce, when it was finally assembled and edited and placed in sequence, the specific combination of comedy and tragedy and genuine agricultural truth that had made the show impossible to stop watching for 5 consecutive years. The answer, on June 3rd, would be 4 episodes long. And the audience, which had been waiting since the fireworks spelled out the number 5 on a Cotswold hillside on Bonfire Night, was ready.